If you're selling on Facebook Shops, or if you want to at any point in the near future, there are some major issues that you need to know about, okay? People have been claiming random suspensions. People have been claiming random order refunds even after the order has been delivered to the buyer's address and completely closed, and a number of other serious things that are obviously going to affect your bottom line and give you headaches, okay? Now, I can't specifically speak to any of those, right? They haven't happened to me yet and hopefully never do, but I can speak to one serious problem specifically, which is a ridiculously high number of chargebacks, okay? And in this video right here, I want to touch on why I believe they're happening and what you can do about them, preemptively so that they don't happen to you as much, and what you can do about them if they do happen to you to prove your case. Now, this is a major problem for a lot of reasons. The first being is that you can't control it, for the most part. Now, we're going to touch on some brief things that you can do to address it and mitigate your risk here in a second, but it seems like for whatever reason, items sold on Facebook Shops have a way, way higher statistical chance of receiving a chargeback after the order, okay? And this could be due to a number of reasons, but really the only explanation that I can come up with that makes any kind of sense is that Facebook is somehow following up on orders placed from shops specifically with a specific option to charge it back if the customer is unhappy for whatever reason. And it doesn't really make that much sense to me, but it's the only way I can wrap my head around it is like maybe this is a way that they're trying to build trust with buyers, even though it's still very, very strange, okay? And don't get me wrong, like regardless of whatever their reasoning is, it's great that Facebook is protecting customers. I love that even as a seller, right? Because it means that people will grow to trust buying on Facebook a lot more going forward, which obviously helps you and me sell more on the platform. So this is a good thing. But even the most customer obsessed platforms like Amazon, for example, and eBay, still require customers to at least reach out to the seller first before filing a chargeback. And on Facebook Facebook Shops specifically, it seems like random chargebacks just occur without any customers bringing it to your attention first, okay? On sites like Amazon, you have the ability to solve a customer's issue ahead of time, refund them outright if they're a problem customer, or improve at least their buying experience all before they're even able to submit an A to Z claim, which is Amazon's, kind of a chargeback policy, right? And so on Facebook Shops, on the other hand, it seems like any customer can just submit a chargeback on any order and usually win it simply by saying they either didn't receive it or maybe it looks different from the picture in a small way. And I've even lost a chargeback because the customer claimed that it looked slightly smaller in the picture, okay? Even though the size was clearly displayed on the image and the size was clearly displayed in the description and they got the same exact item, they simply said their impression of the picture made it look like they were going to get a smaller item, right? Or whatever it was. I remember something distinctly, losing a chargeback claim distinctly for something that stupid, okay? And all this means that you'll not only be losing the money for the purchase, you'll not only be losing the money that you paid for the product, but you'll also be losing the chargeback fee that Facebook then assesses you, okay? And my main shop has about a 17.5 success rate of appealing chargebacks, which in my opinion sucks. That's 7 out of 40. I received 40, the majority of which probably happened in the last month. I don't know the specific numbers, but the majority of them happened in the past month, okay? Which means that I lost $660 on chargeback fees alone so far, and because that's a $20 chargeback fee each time, right? And that's 33 obviously times 20. And that's not even counting like the lost money on the transaction or the lost money for the sale revenue that I no longer receive, obviously, after the chargeback is lost, okay? So this is a major issue, and this is definitely something that, is a huge red flag and something that we most definitely need to keep an eye on, and hopefully Facebook fixes going forward, okay? It definitely casts a huge shadow of doubt over selling on the platform entirely. And one of the major things is, right, like all the money aside, one of the major things that kind of gives me pause too is like if you have no control over this and you continue to get more and more of these chargebacks randomly without any, reconciliation on your part to either prove them false or even stop them ahead of time, eventually it's going to lead to your metrics being harmed, and eventually your store facing a suspension entirely. Obviously, if Facebook sees that one store is getting a significantly high amount of chargebacks, they're clearly just eventually going to suspend that store. Okay. Now, all that being said, there are some things that you can do to mitigate your risk. Okay. Only list products that have good reviews and a good track record for making customers happy, okay? That means don't just go after great margins if the product is terribly made but looks, worth more on the specific listing, okay? And I'm saying this from experience. I'm not telling you like you don't do it. I'm saying it because that's where the majority of my chargebacks come from, okay? They're from cheap, for example, a lot of the Halloween signs that were like Halloween decorations on the front lawn that were simply just like cardboard signs. Yeah, you can make a significant markup on those because they're cheap that for you to purchase. A customer has a perceived value of it being like 20, 30, 40, even $50 sometimes, and your margins can be great, okay? But if you're marking it up significantly and a customer just paid 30, 40, $50 for a small cardboard sign, they're going to be upset about it. Okay. So that's first and foremost. That's one example, but don't just go after great margins if the product is terribly made, but looks like it's worth more on the listing. Okay. Go after products with good reviews, go after products that have a good track record for making customers happy. And if you do get, start to see a trend on a specific product, even if it's making you money, delete it from your store because eventually it's just going to be more headaches than it's worth. Okay. Also, something else that you can do is a strategy that I've implemented on Amazon, for a long time, and that's to preemptively refund any customer that might have a slight issue with anything, okay? Especially if the product price point was relatively small. It's much easier to refund a customer and lose a small margin overall on your monthly revenue than accumulate another blemish on your store's health and performance, okay? So you should go after products with fast shipping as well on top of that. You want fast shipping to customers so that realistically they're going to get their items quickly. And a lot of customers nowadays expect this, number one, but also it'll be easy. It'll keep them happier and it'll be easier for you to track something that goes wrong in a shorter window of time, right? For example, like if you receive an issue on an order that happened within the last week, chances are you're going to remember something slightly about it. You're going to be able to find that order a lot easier. You're going to be able to solve that problem a lot easier. You're going to be able to get a refund on your specific side of the order a lot easier. So you're going to be a lot more, inclined to refund and help the customer that way. And it'll just be a lot more easier to manage from your perspective, right? On the other hand, if you get an issue with an order that's like 3 weeks ago or a month and a half ago, it's going to be a lot more difficult to find that order, to figure out all the information with that order because you have a lot more orders that have happened in the process. And on top of that, it's going to be, in a lot of ways impossible for you to get a refund if it's longer than 30 days or in some suppliers specifically longer than 21 days, okay? So keep all those things in mind. They're all things that you want to focus on, but fast shipping times make it easier for you to manage unhappy customers. But realistically, it's going to end up in resulting in a lot of less unhappy customers. Cut back on Amazon as a supplier. I still use them, don't get me wrong, but I'm actively trying to move away from them for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to touch on them specifically in another video because I'm going to outline this, in an entire other video because I think it's an important topic to touch on. Stop using Amazon as a supplier to outline the specifics of it because first and foremost, you're going to run into issues with TBA tracking numbers. I know some people think that you can input them in shops. You cannot. You run into a lot of issues inputting and using TBA tracking numbers in shops, and it's going to hurt your metrics in the long run, right? But again, I'm going to touch more on that in another video. As well, on top of that is if you if someone files a chargeback against you, and you input like TBA tracking number as the proof that you shipped the item, you lose that every single time, right? And I'm not speaking from like theory here. This is anecdotal experience. It's like every single time I lost, not every single time, but a lot of the times I lost a chargeback, it's because I didn't have an actual specific, tracking number that I could prove was delivered to the buyer's address. Okay. So if you're using TBA tracking numbers from Amazon, you're going to lose that chargeback every single time. Okay. So keep those things in mind. And finally, keep detailed records of everything. Okay. So that means all purchases, all your tracking numbers and all your orders. It's going to make your life so much easier. Okay. It's going to make it easier to locate the information in the future if you need to, if obviously you need to prove your case, or, a buyer has a question about a specific delivery or item. And the good thing is that a lot of platforms, obviously assuming that you're drop shipping, which the majority of you listening to this are, a lot of platforms are going to keep track of your purchases, your order IDs, the people that you're delivering it to, their addresses, the tracking number for you. They're going to keep track of a lot of that for you, which will mean that you don't necessarily have to keep track of everything, on most platforms, right? But you still want to keep track of pretty much all the things that you need to keep track of, whether that's tracking, whatever orders go corresponding with that, the money that you spent on it. So, your numbers, obviously. And one of the things that is the most important from my perspective in my own business is the actual buyer's name. Okay. Because then once you know the buyer's name and the platform you obviously, purchased it on, the majority of platforms you can search via the buyer's name or the order ID. Okay. Key lesson here is, you want to keep detailed records of everything because it's going to make your life a lot easier. Okay. And one other thing I forgot to touch on too is obviously you don't want to drop ship from products from overseas. The same reason being you don't want to use Amazon. Like obviously Amazon delivers really, really fast, but you run into issues with the actual, TBA tracking numbers or, anything like that. The same reason you don't want to use drop ship products from overseas is even if you're able to, get a tracking number and input that tracking number into Shops, there's an actual clause in Shops where the buyer is supposed to get the item within 7 days, right? When you go to set your shop up initially, the shipping option only lets you go up to 7 days. And so I've lost claims before when people file chargebacks based on the fact that, yes, I have a tracking number that's valid. Yes, I can prove it was delivered to the buyer's address, but the buyer claims they expected it within 7 days. And because it wasn't delivered in 7 days, I lose the chargeback. Okay. So keep that in mind. All those things are reasons that you don't want to, sell products from overseas. And you also don't want to drop ship products from Amazon specifically.